I just think it's incredible how a conference about climate change can be organized in such an unsustainable manner. And it's just, typifying for the false solutions that this whole process is promoting. For example, it's set up in such a way that people constantly have to be driven by buses from, a faraway hotel zone to the conference, from one conference to another conference. I mean, there's miles and miles being covered, and then they sort of pretend that that's no problem because the buses run on jatropha, on biodiesel, agrodiesel. While every sensible person who reads newspapers nowadays knows that there's a tremendous amount of environmental and social damage associated with agrofuels, with particularly jatropha-based biodiesel. I've understood that the plantation this jatropha comes from, this diesel comes from, is actually very controversial in Mexico. So this is really a scandalous case of how the Secretariat of the Climate Convention doesn't really care about the climate at all. And of course the whole setup of these climate negotiations in a bigger scale are the same. They never concern the carbon emissions when they organize yet another meeting of a total nonsensical ad hoc technical expert group on whatever. There's thousands of people being flown around the world for this process without a clear structure so that at one meeting you can really come to a deal. I mean, negotiations are important, but you could structure this process in a way that after 2 weeks meeting you actually would have been able to make some worthy decisions that avoid false solutions like carbon offsets and biodiesel. The other scandalous thing of this whole process is that NGOs, indigenous peoples organizations, women, all the major groups are totally excluded from the process in a way that I haven't seen since the World Trade Organization talks, which is of course typifying because it's all about money making and making economic deals in these negotiations, obviously. I've been also just involved 2 months ago in the Conference of the Parties of the Biodiversity Convention, and there you see the total opposite. I mean, you could reach it by subway, and once in the conference, the process was almost totally open for NGOs and indigenous peoples organizations. There are ad hoc technical working groups that are actually co-chaired by indigenous peoples because they deal with their traditional knowledge. People are able to not only observe contact groups, they're actually able to speak in some of the most sensitive informal negotiations. And as a result of that, you see that this Conference of the Parties of the Biodiversity Convention 2 months ago succeeded to obtain a protocol with binding commitments. It succeeded to get a moratorium on geoengineering and other dangerous technologies that might hurt biodiversity. So you see that because of the participation of civil society, you can get to a real deal.